Hello folks, my name is Mark, this is Why I Hate the World, how you guys doing? So there's been a lot of talk since the election about how the Democrats lost, and one of the takeaways seems to be that they failed to appeal to middle America. That is the non-college educated white working class. The true Americans that Sarah Palin is always talking about. So there's been some discussion recently about what Democrats can do to reach out to these people, which usually involves moving further to the right on several key social issues, things like entitlement spending, civil rights, abortion, and so on. Being less PC, that kind of thing. And I think that's the wrong way to do it. Now, I say there really is no need for the Democrats to move to the right on any of these issues because the Clinton won the popular vote, and not only did she win the popular vote, she annihilated the popular vote. She won, 3 million more people voted for her. That, to put that in perspective, that margin is the same margin by which George Bush won the election in 2004. Okay, so that's the thing. We have the numbers. She lost the Electoral College, but by very small margins in each state. Under 100,000 votes. That's pretty small, right? In every state. I mean, I think it was Wisconsin was something like 20,000 votes. That's like nothing. That's one town. All right. So, so what I think they should focus on, instead of trying to be more like Republicans, right? I think the Democrats need to just frame their message a little better. Focus on the proper framing, and because the Democratic platform is far more beneficial to the average working person in this country than the Republicans are. For example, minimum wage. The Republicans are notorious for wanting to, destroy the minimum wage. They don't want to increase it, but many of them actually want to do away with it altogether. That's something that Trump said on the campaign trail, was that he was against the minimum wage and that it was too high. Well, that's the kind of thing that Sarah Palin says. Sarah Palin said the same thing, or not Sarah Palin, sorry, it confuses people sometimes. It was Michelle Bachmann said this once a few years ago, and she said, well, if we lower the minimum wage, then we can employ more people. Well, what's the point of having a job if your job doesn't pay for the things that you need it for? If you can't pay rent, if you can't buy food, you can't pay for health insurance or anything like that. It's like, yeah, you can give everybody a job if we pay them 10 cents an hour, and that's how's that going to help, right? How does that solve anything? It doesn't solve shit, What about health insurance, right? That's another issue. Over the last 8 years, they've tried their hardest to destroy Obamacare. They've made it very clear that they don't want it. They've attempted to repeal it over 60 times or something ridiculous like that. But what they haven't made clear is what their alternative to the Affordable Health Care Act would have been, or would be now, and it's because they don't actually have an alternative. Something came out about a week ago or so where they finally came up with a plan, and that plan involves, it's another thing that was proposed by the Heritage Foundation, which, for those of you who don't know, the ACA actually came from a proposal from the Heritage Foundation. So what we have now is actually an invention by the conservatives and think tanks and shit. And now they want to replace it with another invention of the conservative think tanks. Anyway, so what it is they want to put forward a model now that have health savings accounts, right? So basically, every person gets a subsidy, and then you have to go buy your own, private insurance, which is really not that much different than what we have now. What we have now says you have to buy health insurance and then you get a subsidy. Well, they're doing essentially the same fucking thing, right? It's not really much of a change when, the basis of your entire system is exactly the same. So that really tells me they don't actually have an alternative. It's because they don't care, because the Republican alternative is actually don't get sick, all right? And that's what it's been. That's what they wanted. And that's what they're going to turn it into, in the coming, Trump administration. But that's a subject for another video. Another subject was trade deals, which came up a lot during the came up a lot during the campaigns and so forth. And Trump made a big deal about being against trade deals like NAFTA and the TPP, which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, for those of you who don't know. And, that's nifty and all, but in real life, it's the Republicans who brought us all these trade deals in the first place. Let's not forget that NAFTA was originally, Bush the first. It was originally his bill. And it only got, Clinton actually went in and got additional, he increased the deal and got worker protections and increased pay and more safety regulations for workers in Mexico before he signed on to it. Right. Which, but even so, Trump was able to use this to beat Hillary over the head with during the campaign and stuff, right? Saying that he'd be against TPP and these deals are wrong and they're stealing jobs, blah, 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 blah. But then he wins the election and he turns right around and he staffs his fucking, cabinet picks with people who support the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The people he's proposed, the ambassador to China, the proposed head of the Department of Defense, 3 of the contenders for the Secretary of State and also the Commerce Secretary are all for the TPP. And let's not forget, Governor Mike fucking Pence, right? That guy, our soon-to-be vice president, is also pro-TPP. So, and it's sort of like, and I think that the final fuck you to workers from Trump came when he named the CEO of Carl's Jr. to be the head of the Department of Labor. So, this is a guy that makes, 300 times what his average worker makes, right? He's against overtime pay. There was a rule a proposed rule which is being delayed right now, and that would increase overtime pay for millions of people. And he's publicly come out against that. He's against raising the minimum wage, right? It's like basically you get the fox running the hen house, right? And it's not just, Trump. It's been like this for decades, okay? Since fucking the 80s. I mean, since as long as I can remember, the Republicans have just basically been very pro-business and very anti-worker, And it's really kind of just, sad and disgusting that and also frustrating that the Democrats can't get their fucking shit together and get their message out. How does the minimum wage raise if we don't vote for it, right? We're us, the Democrats, right? I'm a Democrat right now. We're the ones voting for this stuff. We're the ones who are passing laws that protect workers and OSHA and stuff like that. We're the ones that are giving people overtime pay, right? Making sure that you get vacation time, paid doctor leave, that kind of, all of that, all of that comes from the Democrats, all right? You never find Republicans supporting any of this shit because they don't, because that's part of their platform is it's pro-business, it's anti-worker, and that's just comparing the two together. I don't see how you can come to any other conclusion, right? So, to sum up, no, right? The Democrats should not move further to the right? They should not try to be like Republicans. In fact, I would argue that when Democrats act like Republicans, they lose elections, right? Seeing how this last election as an example of that. What they need to do is they need to frame their message better and actually, because it's true, because the truth is on our side, all right? We're the ones that are actually helping workers here, right? We're the ones keeping them in the country. We're the ones preventing them from being outsourced. Right, we're the ones who are trying to develop green technologies. That's another thing that happened during the election where Trump basically went to Virginia, North Carolina and lied to all those coal workers, telling them that he's going to bring their jobs back and shit. No, he's not. All right, that industry is dead and it needs to die. Right, it's basically being outcompeted by the fracking industry right now, but it needs to die for the good of mankind, global warming and shit. What you should do is, develop green technologies and so that these people can get jobs, instead of lying and saying that you're going to bring back jobs that there's no possible way you can bring back. Because that's the ultimate, Republican plan is to getting back to what Michelle Bachmann said about the minimum wage, that we can employ more people if we lower the minimum wage. That's their ultimate plan, is that they want us to compete with China by turning us into China. It's we'll just get armies and armies of low paid slave workers and shit to and we'll remove all of the fucking worker protections and that kind of thing, you know, so that way it's like people are dying on the job and we're paying them 5 cents an hour and they've got no health care and blah, 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 blah. And that way we can make our like cheap consumer goods and sell them for 3 cents on, you know, whatever. And that's how we'll compete with China. And that's like, you're not going to be able to do it. You can't do it without turning into China, right? In order to do that, we'd have to remove all the environmental protections. We'd have to remove the wage controls, you know, the minimum wage. We'd have to remove all of the safety regulations, right? And who wants to live like that? You know, you want to turn us into you want to turn us into China. Well, you've seen those pictures of Beijing where it's like the smog is so thick that you can't see outside, where people are walking around in gas masks, right? Is that what you want here? Is that what you want the United States to be? Because that's what they're going to turn it into. All right. So it's like, you know, we're the only ones who ever stand up for, like, you know, standing up for working people. It's us, okay? The people on the left, the Democrats, and that's what we need to do. We need to get out there and frame that message, right? And tell the truth and attack, be aggressive with it. Hit them, you know, when you do your campaign fucking, you know, videos and stuff, hit them with that message, right? Because you need to get it out there, right? Anyway, that's all for now. Adios.